Here we go. Welcome to
Hey
our gut.
everybody.
Welcome to our gut session today for Be Beautiful You, and you have myself and Sharon. So I'm Vicky Jameson from Better Body, Beauty and Wellness.
And I'm Sharan Kafoa from Why Settle for Ordinary Health and Wellness.
Yay! And we're going to talk to you just briefly on gut health and how it impacts you right now in the middle of our COVID environment, but also to long term for other changes that may be happening in the body as women and as we get older.
That's right. So what we're going to do is we're going to touch a little bit about what your digestive system actually is, because it's more than just, your intestines. Then we're going to look at things like Vicky's going to touch on skin, our emotions and how that impacts us. Hormones, obviously, will be coming from me. We'll talk a little bit about probiotics and then give you some ideas for what you can do moving forward. So we hope you're going to enjoy it. So when we look at our digestive system, as I said, it's actually more than just our stomach or our intestines. It actually starts with our mouth. And this is where it all actually begins, because when we start eating, when we smell the food, when we see the food, that triggers our salivary glands to start producing saliva. And it's really important because it helps break down food, as do our teeth. As I keep saying to my 18-year-old son when he inhales his food, your stomach doesn't have teeth, honey. It doesn't like big chunks of food. So chewing your food thoroughly is really, really important. As I said, saliva is important. Then we go down our esophagus to our stomach. Now our stomach, that's where it stores and churns our food round. It gets things ready. There's very limited absorption in there, although as we know, alcohol gets absorbed there very quickly. Then it moves down through there. You've got the pancreas involved. You've got the liver involved. You've got the gallbladder involved. Then you've got the small and large intestines, where you have a lot of your absorption of water and nutrients, and stool preparation goes on. And then of course you've got your rectum and the endy bits.
Evacuation.
The evacuation, that's right. So this is where it starts and that's where it finishes. So you can see it's actually quite complicated. It's not a simple thing. There's a lot that's involved there. So there's actually a lot that you can do to help your system work properly.
And I think too, an interesting point, just to put it in perspective as in size, is like the skin is the largest organ of the body on surface volume, but the stomach or intestinal digestive tract is the largest on volume. If you think of your intestines, is how many meters, Sharon?
Oh, I think
it wraps around a football field, doesn't it?
I don't know. I don't think it's that big, honey, but
if you stretch it out,
it's frighteningly large when you think about where it sits.
Yeah,
it's huge. Your small and large intestine are actually really, really huge.
Yes, exactly. So I thought it'd be really useful to comment at this point, not just on food that goes in, because clearly that's our main objective, is to get food in, digest it, and make energy as far as our body wants. But from a human perspective, we quite often eat because we love food, or we want it for comfort, or we want it for connection, for family time. So quite often in our society nowadays, we have food as our joy kind of thing. So for us, Sunday nights would traditionally be, not at the moment, but traditionally family gathering time, or birthdays and celebrations. It's family and there's food and it's joy and all that. That from an energetic and vibrational perspective makes a big difference to how those chemicals that Sharon just talked about work. So it's the sight and the smell and the action of doing it, because we actually tend to eat slower, with more deliberance, looking at our food, that creates that emotional connection. And so then when we're not feeling so good, we then jump to food because we want to have the feel good. So those are neurochemicals. We're not going to go into all that side of things today, because that's a whole topic on itself. But I do want to point out because this does get reflected in the skin. If you're out of balance emotionally, sometimes it can create a physical digestion result. So things to look for from a Chinese medicine perspective, your stomach meridian is more yang, which is your outward expansive, compared to yin, which is more inward and reflective. So if you feel out of sorts, going outside or doing activity can actually help your gut. So just to get it back into balance. An out of balance state there could be from anxiety, worry, overthinking. So if you've got those kind of knots in your stomach and you're a constant overthinker, so that's like personality wise, that is me. So I know all about gut issues. So this can create higher cortisol levels. And so then that triggers our adrenals, which we covered last week. But you can use essential oils. And so the smell works into the brain to then work on your digestion physically, but also emotionally. So it's actually getting that balance right. The other thing to note with emotions is stomach's our earth element, funnily enough. So when we're out of balance, we might feel a bit fragmented or can't think properly. And that can also create worry. So to get back into balance, we need to ground ourselves. So walking on grass, going to the beach, doing something outside, usually in nature, is your earthing. If you can't be in nature, you can just take your shoes off and put your feet on the ground, or scrunch your toes up in your shoes. So finding ways to just balance yourself. If you're at work or you're anxious with work stuff going on, or kid stuff, you can just do a little scrunching in your shoes and deep breathing to actually calm your tummy energy, or that digestive energy.
So heading off down the beach yesterday with the dog, you'd have the smell, the air clearing out the head, but also walking on the sand and just, earthing, calming down.
Grounding.
Cool.
Yeah. And we all need that balance. We can't be hyper worky all the time. We need the rest, recovery, regenerate, not necessarily at equal portions, but we don't, this frenetic thing. And sometimes with COVID going on at the moment, people have got more work rather than less work. Some not, some are less, but then that's a different anxiety. So it's just trying to balance that whole thing out. Yeah,
that's awesome. Because keeping our digestive system happy is crucial on so many levels. Many of you have heard that 70% of our immune system is in our digestive system. That's a large number. And when you think that a lot of our neurotransmitters, like your serotonin, your dopamine, your feel-good hormones, are produced down there, having a happy gut means generally having a happy mind. So things that actually can impact your immune system via your digestive health is things like, interestingly, whether you were a C-section or a vaginal birth. Now, I was a C-section, I know. Whether you were breastfed or not. I wasn't. I was fed from a bottle. Did you have antibiotics early in life? I did, because I used to get really, really bad tonsillitis when I was a kid. And I remember going to the doctor and getting a shot of penicillin, because in those days that's mostly what they had. And it used to swell up and my arm would be so sore. I remember I'd actually have to sit in the car and press my hand against the ceiling of the roof of the car just to try and, I don't know, make it feel better.
Get the circulation pumping, lymphatics as well, probably.
Probably. As a kid, I guess I knew that. So there's 3 for me already that have led to potentially compromised gut. Whether you use lots of over-the-counter medications and pain medications, alcohol, tick. Whether you've had a history of parasite or gastrointestinal sort of illness, and whether you've had high levels of stress, tick. So these all impact our immune system, which is, that's mostly kind of life. So we've got 2,000 strains of bugs, of little bacteria running around in our gut and on our skin. And that's a lot of little bugs to keep happy. We've actually got 10 times more bacteria than we do actual human cells. It's quite interesting.
Cool. So as Sharon mentioned, with some of that bacteria being on your skin, it would make sense then for the body to give you that signal that something's perhaps internally not working right or out of balance, because the body's always wanting to be in equilibrium. That's how it functions more effectively. Think of it like a car. The least resistance, it's going to go faster. So it makes sense that the skin will show us that. So an area so what happens is with the skin is you can get rashes and things like eczema, rosacea, dermatitis, or just sometimes you might react to a product that you may never have reacted to before, or a laundry detergent that's on your clothing. So sometimes you can get rashes out of the blue. It is never out of the blue. Just always use those as signals to go, oh, something's not quite right. So yes, look at the external. Have I changed something? Laundry powder, skincare, soaps, washes. What have I changed? And then, so go through that first, because that's your skin is your first sign of defense. But then the second thing is, okay, what's going on internally from a gut perspective? Is it foods? Is it anxiety and stress? Is it all those things that we just mentioned that we could potentially impact? Now, areas like here is a reflex point that would come up for stomach. So quite often, one of the things I do in my facials is I actually do a pressure point massage. And what it's doing is it's just signaling through the nervous system, calming. So if you have anxiety and you get an upset tummy, or you get that feeling of, sometimes you can get like nausea, or you're not hungry, or you get bloating, yeah, you can do this. You basically press. So you press in the center, out to the side, and then out here. And you don't overstimulate. So doing it 3 times is enough. So as human beings and normal people, we want to, oh, let's fix this, and and you'll just end up with a red face. So just a nice process, and a good time to do that is in the morning when you're putting on your skincare routine. Just give it some extra love, some extra pressing, and then at night do it again if you've had an upsetting day. So use those 2 times of your day to set yourself up and then calm yourself down. So one of the things from a skincare perspective is make sure your routine, your cleansing routine, is really gentle. So not irritating, doesn't have all your toxins and residues and additives in there, so clean. Plant-based products are good because of the smell. We're triggering, so that's calming for that anxiety. So it actually has a effect in the brain. And then you want, for your moisturizers, you want to have as many antioxidants, which are usually plant ingredients anyway, plants and herbs in there, because it's working on free radical damage, which is part of the irritation side of things. And they're usually more calming. So it's helping with the redness, and perhaps if there's swelling and itching, if you've got bad eczema. So that's my little thing. So leading from that, I guess the thing that got me very interested in gut health was the fact that I ended up with a parasite.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is kind of something that you can't always control. Leading into that, I think I already had a compromised gut, but it just wasn't as obvious to me because I wasn't sure. And that was due to stress for 10 or so years, changing hormones, which I know you're going to cover in a minute, Sharon, with having babies, postnatal depression, all those kind of things. And then high stress, busy clinic, staff, changing, lots of stress. And some of that was my internal perceived stress. So, okay, always wanting to have unrealistic expectations. So for me, finding a way to take a breath, and one of the key things that came out of that was meditation. And I know we keep going on about meditation, but activating that deep breathing so we can shut off the fight or flight syndrome that we have going on in our nervous system, which impacts our gut, and triggering the parasympathetic. So that's that balance that the body's wanting. We don't want the fight or flight. We need it sometimes, but we need the calming, and we need that for digestion. So just like it's important to chew your food, it's also good to look. And, in the olden days, it's a really good thing to think about. We used to all sit at the table. I remember going around to my grandparents. We always had to sit at the table. We used to wait till everyone was there, and we were starving. It's like, come on, hurry up, everyone, wait. But the process was the waiting, because what happens is when you sit and you wait, you actually start to breathe differently. So if you ever do it and notice, you tend to take a deep breath or sigh, and that's activating that parasympathetic, or the opposition to your fight or flight. Once you start deep breathing, it's activating. Okay, we're getting ready to eat. Now we can digest. So we're getting those nutrients out, and we're not going to have bloating and things processing further down than we need to, and getting stuck and all those kind of things. So that was kind of my introduction into having to access, count to 3 before I eat, and really focus on not shoveling food in, because I would tend to go, okay, I just need to get this done as quickly as possible, especially lunch. Just come on, hurry up, I've got things to do. It's like, no, we're just taking a moment. So you sit and breathe. You actually start talking differently. You breathe, you look differently, and you've got different things happening in your brain to trigger your chemicals, which is, we don't think about, and we don't need to think about. It's just what we actually do. So that's my little thing.
Well, as you touched upon, Vicky, the parasympathetic nervous system is so important, because the body cannot stress and digest at the same time.
Yeah.
So if you're stressing, it doesn't matter what you eat, how good quality it is, whether it's beautifully organic and unprocessed, and you've made this gorgeous meal. Your body, if you are in a stressed state, your body's not going to digest it. So bloating, the gas, the uncomfortable, the pains, the whole thing that's going to come with it. Heartburn, plus you're not going to absorb anything. And as we know, a lot of our food is severely compromised as far as nutrient value goes nowadays anyway. So you're adding all of these things into it. So I was actually thinking back to all our Sunday meals when we would sit down as a family. That's true. You'd sit there going, come on, Mum.
I know. It's always that way.
But you're right, actually. That's, if I think about it now, it does put you in that simpler state in a way. That's awesome.
So sometimes our body already knows these things, but we have kind of untrained it. So we now just need to be consciously retraining, going back to the old days, I call it, but it's not really. We're just being more aware.
And as Vicky touched upon with hormones, your digestive system, your gut, is actually used to convert a lot of hormones. So things like your thyroid hormones. If you've got dysbiosis, so your gut's imbalanced, you've got issues down there, you're not going to be converting your thyroid hormones into active forms. Therefore, you're going to have compromised thyroid. It's going to start slowing down. You'll be hypothyroid. Things like your insulin as well, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. These are all are impacted by what's going on in your gut. I think I read this quote ages ago that said, the queen of the castle is your gut. And if the queen's unhappy, the castle's in trouble.
Yeah.
And it's so true. It is so true. So it's vital for so many things. So Vicky, what can we do? Well, 2 of our favorite things are probiotics and fiber. Yeah. And in fact, ancestrally, we used to have a lot more fiber in our diets. And we used to have a higher density of nutrients in our food. And these are 2 things that we're just not getting anymore. So my favoriteest thing in the whole world is probiotics. What are probiotics? They're bacteria, sometimes yeast, that live in our digestive system. They're actually also in our lungs, in our genitourinary tract, and on our skin, which Vicky knows about. They help regulate our metabolism. They help make vitamins. And they help regulate our immune system as well. So there are 2 main strains, your lactobacillus and your bifidobacterium. The bifidobacterium are actually in our colon, and they're responsible for our energy production. So again, if you've got that wonky balance down there, you're not going to have energy.
Which kind of makes sense when you think of people who are constipated. We're quite often, sluggish, lethargic.
Exactly. There's so many analogies that our body gives us that, make it you know, makes so much sense.
And in Chinese medicine, just on analogies there's a phrase, they have phrases for every out of balance. So for colon, when you're constipated, you're usually shitty about something. For digestion, for stomach, it's all about you're not absorbing life or ideas, or you can't digest new things. So journaling actually is really good for that, because you can process it. Oh, what's coming up for me?
That's true. Well, it's the life in our foods that give us life. So if you think about, you know, if you're living out of nothing but packaged processed foods, there's no life in that. So what are you actually giving? And your bacteria, the bacteria that live in your gut, will come from the food that you eat. So if you've got a lot of sugar in your diet, you'll have a lot of bugs that just love eating sugar. And they're hungry, they want sugar, they want more sugar. So they're going to trigger you and say, come on, feed us, we want more sugar. So you're going to be reaching for the sugary foods. So probiotics, your little bacteria, are so important. And there are many ways that you can boost your probiotics, your natural bacteria. One is obviously fermented foods, which is really, really good. Miso's got fabulous amounts of bacteria in it. Natural yogurts, be very careful, because a lot of yogurts can have a lot of sugar in them, especially a lot of the yogurt drinks and things, and the kefir drinks, kombucha drinks, that sort of thing. Be wary of the sugar. And also by using a good probiotic supplement.
Yes. Actually, as a point on sugar, a guide, and you might know more specifically on this, Sharon, I always taught in the old days when I trained, if you're looking on a label, if it's 10% or less, is it 10% or 10 grams? Can you clarify that? Then it's okay. If it's under the 10, so if something has 10 or less in the per mil, you know, per 100 mil.
Or the other thing I look at too is ingredients. If sugar is one of the top 5 ingredients, then you've got a lot of sugar in there. And sugar, as you know, comes in so many different. We could do, I think, almost a whole episode just on sugar.
Yes. Yeah. So, and the other thing is fiber. Can you tell us about fiber? I think for me, for my gut, for having IBS, which I have to say has taken me 10 years pretty much to get under control. So as a realistic, I mean, that was because I also had that parasite, which was a nightmare. But once we found it, a whole process, anyway, let's not go there. 10 years to now balance, and I feel like I have it under control. Probiotics was every day for years, and fiber for me, as much as I resisted taking fiber because I thought, I don't need any more fiber, I've got issues in that department. Things go in and they go out very quickly. I didn't need fiber, I thought, but it has been the one thing I religiously take it, and it's just made such a big difference.
Well, again, we're not getting enough fiber. We need around 25 to 28 grams of fiber a day, and most people don't even get half of that. And the fiber we need both soluble and insoluble fiber. So we need the soluble fiber to absorb the toxins, and then you want the insoluble fibers kind of like a broom, and it sweeps it all out and moves it. And you want the two of those things.
At the right pace.
At the right pace, yes, because if it moves through too quickly, then things don't get absorbed. It doesn't. The body doesn't absorb water, because you absorb water in your large colon. And if it's too slow, then things don't work as well either. So, for me, it's taken me quite a few years to heal my gut. I had the beginnings of IBS, if I think back 20 years ago, to what was happening with my gut. I remember I was an executive recruitment consultant, and I'd be sitting in with all these high level dudes, you know, executives in banks and things. And my stomach would be like, there's a Formula One race going on down there. And I'm sitting there thinking, can anyone else hear this? Or is this just me? What's going on? It would be awful. And it's taken me years. So this is the thing. It can actually take years to get to this point. But we think it's happened quickly, but it hasn't. It's taken a long time, and it can take an equally as long, if not longer time, to actually heal it. So basic gut protocol, if you think, you know, your gut's acting up, look at reducing your exposure to whatever might be inflaming it. So your typical inflammatories are things like gluten, corn, soy, dairy, toxins. There's a lot of toxins in our skincare, as you know, our personal care products in and around our home. So doing what you can to reduce your exposure to those helps a lot. Then what you need to work on doing is actually re-establishing a healthy balance of bacteria. And then what you need to do is look at how can you get your digestive system working again. Now, those are just 3 key areas, but introducing fiber, mood, what's your emotional state doing? What's the quality of the food that you're eating? Probiotics. I take a probiotic supplement every day. It's fabulous. I love it. It makes a huge difference to how I feel. Vicky?
Yep. And also, don't forget, it makes a huge difference to your skin, probiotics, because our skin is our largest organ, and it reflects totally what is going on the inside.
Yeah.
So if you are feeling shitty or crappy or sluggish, it's going to show on your skin. You're not going to have that vibrant glow, and that's part of what keeps us looking younger, is the vibrancy as well as less lines. So
and we all want less lines.
We all want less lines. We want to look good for our age and feel confident. So, okay, we're going to age, but
yeah, but what we want is we want people to guess. We want people to look at us and go, well, I can kind of see she's a woman of experience.
Yep.
Rather than go,
wisdom. We want the wise woman.
Yeah, I don't want somebody to look at me and go, oh God, look at her. She looks like she's 70. I'd rather have them guessing and just go, wow.
Even though I haven't been to my hairdresser for a while now, every week, we're getting grayer and grayer. It's very scary. I never realised I was so grey.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I came across, again, this saying, I love these things, that it's the rule of tacks. So if you're sitting on a tack, you don't go and take an aspirin for the pain. You work out where the tack is and you work out what you can do to remove it.
Yes.
So we'd like to leave you on that thought.
Yes. Thank you very much for jumping on.
And if there's anything either one of us can do, don't hesitate to reach out. Whether you want information on fiber products or probiotics or anything else, great skincare, then reach out and let us know.
Great. See you next week.
See you guys.
Bye.